Okay, so there. Okay, let's start again. So welcome everyone. My name is Karen Visser. I'm co-founder and CEO of BioLink Brain Training here in South Africa. And we are very excited to have you on today. Like I said to Gwen now, I know I've got so many messages telling me that they've got load shedding or there's storms in the north. So we are all aware of everything that's happening. So please don't worry. And if you lose connection at any time, don't worry about it. We are recording this session and everyone will get the recording tomorrow via email. So I don't want to do all the talking. I'm so excited to introduce you to Gwen. Now, I've known Gwen now for more than 10 years, 12, 15, I don't even know how long. And I can just tell you that through the years and even till today, when I watch their webinars weekly on their Play Attention with them, she teaches us so much and she's got a world of knowledge and so much experience. So Gwen, thank you so much. I know how busy you guys are, so we are really very thankful that you are spending this 40 to 45 minutes with us. So I'm going to hand over to Gwen, and she will we'll look at the chats at the end. When we will look at it at the end, because I see from my side, I will maybe not be able to answer. But if you have any questions, please just put it in the chat. When we'll scan through them at the end and answer as much. And please, guys, if you've got questions, ask her. You've got her here now. And she really has got so much experience with regards to the topic. So, Gwen, thank you so much. You are on.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I really am excited to share this time with you and appreciate you logging in. Again, my name is Gwen Sorley, and I will be your host today. I am the COO and Vice President of Play Attention. So today we're going to be talking about working memory. And so we'll be covering a lot of topics regarding working memory, but I want to start off with this first. And you can use the chat box. I'm going to scan the chat box during this event. So like Karen said, you can use the chat box to type in comments or questions. And I do want your response right now, because I want to know if any of you have ever experienced this phenomenon. Okay, let's say that you are in one room and you suddenly walk through the doorway into another room. And as soon as you get into that other room, you have no idea why you're in that room. Have any of you ever experienced that? Nicolette says, oh, yes. Tracy raises her hand. So it is such a common thing that we all have experienced, right? It is actually a psychological phenomenon known as the doorway effect. That is to say that when a person walks through the doorway, they move from one room into another room, they experience a lapse in working memory that would not have occurred had they just remained in one place. So this is a common phenomenon, and everyone here is saying that they have experienced this. That is a lapse of working memory. So working memory really does affect everything we do throughout the day. And we're going to take a little deeper dive into working memory and talk about working memory versus short-term memory, how important working memory is, how it's related to executive function, and some ways we may be able to improve working memory. So let's first look at the differences between short-term memory and working memory, because sometimes we confuse the two. Short-term memory is information you hold temporarily for about 15 to 30 seconds. So if you went to a conference and you met this woman and she said, hi, my name is Sally, and you said, hi, Sally, that's an example of short-term memory. Then she said to you, my number is 828-1212, and you said 828-1212, and you rehearsed that until you could put it into your phone. That's an example of short-term memory. So it's information you take in and you hold that information for about 15 to 30 seconds and you use it in the same way. Now, working memory is very different in that working memory is when you take in information, you manipulate that information in your mental workspace in order to give a response. And it's a different response. So you're manipulating that information and you're giving a response, much like a mathematical word problem. So you can see this gentleman here, he is using his working memory or trying to. It looks like he's not being very successful with his working memory. But you can think about working memory as kind of like your mental sticky note. It's when you're taking information, you hold that information on your mental sticky note long enough to then use that information to complete a task. So you see here, this gentleman is trying to use his working memory to complete a recipe. So he's holding information on his mental sticky note. That means he has to hold in memory, what did the ingredient list say when he read the recipe? How much sugar did he need to add? How much salt did he need to add? How much milk did he need to add? And what has he already completed? What steps of the recipe has he already completed? While you're doing a recipe, you're always utilizing your working memory. And if you have strong working memory, you can read that recipe and implement it and remember where you are in the task. If you have weak working memory, then you may find yourself constantly going back to the recipe and rereading and trying to remember, did I add the sugar or not? How much milk was I supposed to add? So that double or going back and trying to figure out where you were in that process, that's an example of weak working memory. So working memory, as I mentioned earlier, you need strong working memory to complete almost every task you do on a daily basis. Working memory actually powers executive function. And if you're familiar with executive function, you know that executive function is a set of mental processes that allow you to complete everyday tasks. So executive function allows you to control your attention, your memory, your emotions. It allows you to control your ability to plan, prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. All of those mental processes require strong working memory. And all of those mental processes are part of executive function. So if you have weak working memory, then you are probably struggling with a lot of the mental processes that are encompassed by executive function. So if we think about how does poor working memory affect your daily life? And as we go through this list, you can think of it in terms of yourself or your partner or your child. So if poor working memory is affecting your daily life, you may constantly be losing your keys, your cell phone, your wallet. Perhaps your child is constantly losing his or misplacing his homework or backpack. You may get easily lost even right after you were just given directions, or you have difficulties following a conversation because you forget what the other person just said. You may have to reread a paragraph several times to retain the information. And probably many of you here, if you're teachers or you are parents, you see that in your children or your students where they're struggling with reading comprehension, and it's directly related to poor working memory. They have to reread the information over and over again in order to summarize what they just read. Or you may miss deadlines at work because of your disorganization and inability to follow through with projects. So can any of you here relate to poor working memory? Is working memory affecting you or perhaps your partner or a colleague or your children or your students? Probably many of you see this in your day-to-day life. Now, not only when we think about it in adult terms, not only does it affect us at home or in the workplace, but working memory is critical to school success. There have been studies done. There was one study in particular done in the UK, and they looked at, I believe it was 3,000 school-age children. They were elementary and junior high age children. And those studies indicated that weak working memory was more indicative of struggles in school than low IQ. So that means that if you had a student who had a very high IQ, but poor working memory, that student actually performed lower on math tests and reading comprehension tests than students who had a lower IQ. So that may explain for a lot of you why you think, but my child is so bright. Why is he struggling in school? Why is he not performing well on these tests? And it may come back to weak working memory. So let's think about, now we know how working memory, we know what working memory is, and we know how important it is and how it can affect our everyday life. So what are some of the factors that negatively affect working memory? And there are several, but I'm going to review a few. One, of course, is ADHD. ADHD can negatively affect working memory. A 2020 study found that a majority of children with ADHD displayed impairments in working memory. And also, previous studies showed the same results in ADHD adults. So why is it? Why is ADHD and weak working memory, why do the two go hand in hand so often? Well, one, of course, is your inability to direct and sustain your attention to low stimuli for long periods of time. If you are unable to pay attention to the situation, to pay attention to the environment, to pay attention to the information that's coming in, it's going to be very difficult for you to formulate memories. Also, another hallmark of ADHD is distraction, right? You are easily distracted, or your students are so easily distracted. And if you are distracted, you are missing details. And again, you're not going to be able to formulate those memories and hold that information on your mental sticky note. So let's go back to that. Let's think about distraction and the information we're keeping on our mental sticky note. Remember, that's our working memory. So if you think about going to the grocery store, and let's say you think, oh, I don't have to write down the items I need. I can remember these items. And so you think, I need chicken, I need ground beef, I need bananas, and I need milk. So you go to the store and you're keeping all of this information in your working memory, or so you think. And you go to the store and you get the first 3 items. And as you're about to go towards the 4th item, you hear people start talking. There's a couple of people next to you, and they start talking about how tonight they're going to make braai brikkie. Yes, I've been to South Africa. I've been exposed to braai brikkie. So you hear people talking about they're going to prepare that tonight. And you think that is a great idea. So suddenly you are distracted from your task at hand, and you start shopping for all the items you need in order to make braai brikkie that night. And as you shop, you're very excited. You're thinking about when you're going to make it. And you go through the checkout line and you get home and you realize you forgot the milk. That was the final item on your mental sticky note. So that distraction caused you to experience weak working memory. You were not able to hold all of that information because of the distraction. So that is a really good example that we can probably all relate to. Now, also, distractions occur oftentimes when we're reading on devices. So you may notice that we're now reading on devices more and more because we enjoy it or because it's mandatory. I know a lot of our students now, they have to read on devices. And you may notice that your personal reading comprehension has gone down, or that your child really struggles, or your students really struggle with reading comprehension when they are reading on a device. And that is because those devices are designed to distract you. So it's often very difficult for reading comprehension because you are rereading that paragraph over and over again because the distractions on the device are affecting your working memory. So ADHD can negatively affect working memory. Also, aging, the aging process. As we age, we experience a decline in working memory. Working memory is among the cognitive functions most sensitive to decline in old age. And I know many of us here today are probably experiencing this as our parents are aging. I can give you a great example of my own experience with my mom. My mom is 92 years old, and she has great long-term memory. She has horrible short-term memory and working memory. So I'll give you an example of her long-term memory being fantastic. So she calls me a while ago, and it was right after Jeopardy had ended. So it was about 7:35 at night. And are you all familiar with the show Jeopardy with Alex Trebek? Just let me know if you see it there. If you don't know Jeopardy, I'll explain what it is. Just type in the chat box, yes or no for me. Are you familiar? Okay, so it's not a thing in South Africa. So Jeopardy, I'm sure you have something similar, is a game show where they ask trivia questions, hard trivia questions. And at the end of the show, they have Final Jeopardy, where they ask the most difficult question. So my mom at 92 calls me up and says, I was the only person that got the Final Jeopardy question correct. No one else remembered. No one else knew. I'm sorry. No one else knew the answer to the Final Jeopardy question. And I said, well, what was it? And she said, the question was, what was the popular jacket after World War II? No one got it right. I was the only one who knew it. And I said, oh yeah, Marlies, it's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, definitely. And so I said, well, what was the answer? I have no idea. She goes, oh, everyone knows that. And I was thinking, well, we weren't all there. You were there. So what was the answer? And she said it was the Eisenhower jacket. So I am certain she has not thought about the Eisenhower jacket for years, but she remembered it. She remembered that the Eisenhower jacket was the most popular jacket after World War II. Now, that is very much in contrast to our Friday nights, because every Friday night for the last 3 years, my husband and I have done Takeout Friday for her. So she lives in New York, we live in North Carolina. So we order takeout or delivery actually for her, and we have food delivered Friday night, enough food for herself, for her neighbors, for the entire weekend. So we know she's taken care of for the weekend. And so every Friday night, she receives her delivery at 5 o'clock, and she expects our call at 6. So we call her at 6 o'clock. She's probably been done eating for about 15 minutes. And we say, what did you have for dinner? And she always says, it was really good. So what was it? Some kind of casserole. Now, we have never ordered her a casserole. I don't know anyone who's ordered a casserole since the 1970s. But in that little block of time, she has no idea what she just ate. But she could remember that Eisenhower jacket. So it is very common that our working memory is negatively affected as we age. And why is that? Well, researchers have looked and they have found that we are very susceptible to distractions as we age. It is very difficult for us to filter distractions, much like ADHD. As we age, we have a very difficult time filtering distractions. So we're not able to formulate those memories because we are distracted. We're not sustaining our attention. Another area is processing speed. As we age, our processing speed actually becomes slower. So you may notice that your aging parents don't watch movies as much. I know my mom never watches movies anymore. And it's very difficult for us as we age and our processing speed is slower, because as we're watching scene one, we're trying to process that information and we don't process it fast enough. Scene two has already begun. Now we can't remember what happened in scene one in order to assimilate that with scene two to really follow the plot. So distraction, our inability to sustain our attention, our processing speed, as we age, those all decline and negatively affect our working memory. Not only that, but as we age as women, when we hit menopause or perimenopause, 60% of women state that they are experiencing some kind of brain fog. And it is very common as we're going through perimenopause or menopause, and it's related or associated with the drop in hormones. As we lose estrogen, then our ability to sustain our attention and our working memory is negatively affected. And a new concern, a new contributing factor to weak working memory is what we now know of as COVID brain fog. You can think of brain fog as slow or sluggish thinking. And this form of brain fog can affect different aspects of cognition. So we're finding this more and more in individuals who have experienced COVID. They have what's known as COVID brain fog. There are many studies going on right now, but researchers have found that individuals who have had a various form of COVID, from being hospitalized to not being hospitalized, very severe bouts with COVID, they have found that those individuals have noticeable problems with attention, memory, and executive function. And it's very difficult because we don't know why this is occurring. And we also don't know how long that effect, that after effect is going to prolong. So we don't know how long it's going to stay with us, because it does seem to be very different for everyone. There's even an ongoing study in Germany that shows that individuals who had a very small case, not very big case of COVID, but a very small case of COVID with very few symptoms, are experiencing this COVID brain fog. So there are many factors. We've touched on just a few, but there are many contributing factors when it comes to weak working memory. I was speaking with a woman the other day, and she said, I don't know why I am having such a hard time with my memory. I don't know if it's because of my ADHD. I don't know if it's because I'm going through menopause. I don't know if it's because I had COVID. And we don't know. We really don't know. There are a lot of factors that can contribute to weak working memory. And probably for many of us, it's a combination. It can be all of the above. And probably for her, it was a combination of those factors. And so it's really important, though, that although there can be many contributing factors, it's important we keep in mind that we know through neuroplasticity that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you with the right tools and the right challenge, we can develop these skills despite what may have been contributing to our weak working memory. So let's talk now more on the positive side. What can we do about it? What are some steps we can take? And some of these steps you can start implementing today. What steps can we take in order to improve working memory? And a lot of these suggestions that you see or strategies that you see on the screen right now, you've heard of these before. So we can improve our sleep. Maybe you've heard this before, but you didn't really think of why or how better sleep affects your memory. Well, when you go to sleep, you're asleep, but your brain is working overtime. Your brain is working very hard on consolidating information, especially when you get into deep sleep or REM sleep. Your brain is consolidating information. That means it's taking new information that you've gotten throughout your day, and it's assimilating that information with prior information. It's also trimming away information that you no longer use. So this act that your brain is doing while you're sleeping, this act of consolidating information, is helping you formulate the memories and solidify those memories. So it's really important. If you never get into that deep sleep, if you're one of those people that you're just not getting enough sleep, you're getting maybe 4 hours a night, or maybe your child is getting very little sleep at night, it is negatively affecting your memory because those memories are not being solidified. You have to get into that deep sleep in order for the brain to consolidate that information. Exercise more. We know that exercise has a direct effect on our attention, our impulse control, our memory. There was one study done with school-age children that showed that just 20 minutes of cycling actually helped improve the students' ability to pay attention, to control their impulsivity, and it also improved their working memory. So those individuals had better school performance for up to an hour after just 20 minutes of cycling. You can use memory apps. I'm sure many of you used an app today to remind you that you had this meeting. And so use your Google calendars, use your alarms, use all of those apps, those to-do apps that you have on your devices. Use them because they really do help you keep on track. Also, you can use memory strategies like mnemonics or visualization. Mnemonics are a pattern of words or letters that help us remember information. So I don't know one that you would use commonly, but one that we use commonly is Roy G. Biv. Roy G. Biv is a mnemonic we learned in elementary school that helps us remember the colors in the rainbow. So Roy, R-O-Y, red, orange, yellow. That's a mnemonic. And we all learned it in elementary school, and we still remember it to this day and use it when we have to think about the colors of the rainbow. And so that's an example of a mnemonic. Also, visualization. If you can associate information with a mental image, or better yet, an emotion, it gives you kind of a memory hook that allows you to remember information much easier. So those are some strategies you can use in order to start improving working memory. But there is one thing you can definitely start today that will improve your working memory. A decade-long study shows that you should stop doing this one thing if you want to improve your working memory. And I'm going to give you all an opportunity to type in the chat box, what do you think that one thing is? If there was one thing you should stop doing in order to improve your memory, What do you think it is? If you have an idea, you can type it in the chat box. Anyone brave enough? Nicolette says screen time. That's a good idea. Marlise says stop stress. Excellent. You guys all have good ideas. Oh, they're all very good ideas. Jeannie says spend less time inside if you're going to stop doing something and spend more time outdoors. Green time is great for your memory. But the one thing is, and Lauren got it correct. Lauren says, stop thinking we can multitask. And that is absolutely correct. The one thing we should stop doing is multitasking. And all of you here today are thinking, I'm a great multitasker. You are not a great multitasker. No one is a great multitasker. And I hear it all the time. I'm a really good multitasker. The brain is not designed to multitask. The brain is designed to do one thing really well at a time and then move on to the next thing. So Lauren is absolutely right. The one thing you should stop doing today is multitasking. Because when it comes to multitasking, we are really negatively affecting not only our attention, but our working memory. And we're all guilty of it, right? In today's attention economy, we are all guilty of multitasking. I bet a bunch of you are doing it right now. You're kind of listening to me, but you're also replying to an email and you're scanning your social media and you're writing your grocery list. How many of you type yes if you are guilty of that right now? I will not be offended because, as I said, we are all guilty of multitasking. Nicolette says not at this time, but many more of you are saying yes than no. Of course, Karen and Marlise are talking. Madeline is cooking. I forget it's nighttime there, so you are all busy making dinner and kind of listening to me. So it is true. We're all guilty of multitasking. The difficulty is that when it becomes a way of life, then multitasking, when it becomes a way of life, then multitasking can begin to diminish our cognitive performance and our memory. Research has shown that heavy media multitaskers significantly underperform light multitaskers when it comes to completing tasks that require sustained attention and working memory. So since most of you are multitasking right now, I'm going to repeat that because you heard half of it. So research has shown that heavy media multitaskers significantly underperformed light multitaskers when it came to completing tasks that required sustained attention and working memory. So you may wonder why that is, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with ADHD. The Stanford psychologist Anthony Wagner states that reduced working memory occurs in heavy media multitaskers because they have a higher probability of experiencing lapses in attention. And we've talked a few times throughout this session where if you are unable to direct and sustain your attention, especially to low stimuli, it's going to be very difficult for you to formulate memories. And as we do this, as we continue to make multitasking a habit, then it really does affect our working memory. The more you multitask, the more you are going to experience partial attention, which is going to negatively affect your working memory. And the problem with that, or the crux of the matter, is our habits. If we have made multitasking a habit, our habits actually contribute or negatively affect our cognitive performance. So we need to be very aware of our mental hygiene. You can think of mental hygiene as kind of like oral hygiene, right? If you want to have healthy teeth, you have to have good oral hygiene. That means you brush every day, you floss every day, you have healthy, strong teeth. If you have poor oral hygiene, then your teeth will rot, right? And they're no good to you. So it is the same with mental hygiene. We have to have good, strong mental hygiene in order to have good mental health and good cognitive performance. So we want to practice good mental hygiene on a day-to-day basis. So we should look at how much are we multitasking throughout the day, because maybe you may have created such a habit of multitasking, you are completely unaware that you are even doing it, right? So take notes throughout your day and just jot down the times of day that you find yourself multitasking. And I bet you will be surprised how much time you are actually spending multitasking. And for those of you who think, oh, I don't think I multitask that much, it is the individuals who get to the end of the day and you think, I am so exhausted. I've been busy all day long and I finished nothing. If you think that at the end of the day, if you have that thought where I've been busy all day long and I finished nothing, you are a heavy multitasker, okay? So keep track. And once you really assess how much time you spend multitasking, then make a point to schedule no multitasking times into your day, okay? Schedule times where you say to yourself, I am only going to do this one thing during this time, okay? Try that. Also, break the habit of constantly checking your social media. Social media is really bad for us in that we are addicted to it and we're constantly looking at it. It's causing those lapses in our attention. It's causing distraction and it's negatively affecting our working memory. And also try to use mindfulness to train that muscle of sustained attention. Now, I know many of you here may think, I've tried mindfulness. Mindfulness doesn't work for me. And I want you to take a new perspective on mindfulness. Mindfulness doesn't mean that you have to be in a quiet room, just focused on your inner thoughts and letting distractions go. That doesn't necessarily, if you do that, fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the way you practice mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness can be go for a walk. Go for your walk. Do you usually go out and take a walk for 15 or 30 minutes in the evening? If you go for a walk, just walk. Don't walk and make a phone call. Don't walk and listen to a podcast. Just go for your walk and focus on being mindful on the walk. What do you feel? How do your feet feel as they touch the earth? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? What are the colors around you? Just focus on the experience and be mindful of the walk, not the podcast while you're walking, not the phone call while you're walking. So that's an example of mindfulness that you can incorporate if you're doing the dishes, or as some of you said, if you're making dinner, just be present with that one activity. Well, I don't want you to stop listening to me because some of you are multitasking right now while you're making dinner. But at some point this week, try to just make dinner, experience that, and see how you feel. See how maybe better you do at following that recipe, at getting things done in a timely manner, because you're just being mindful in that one situation. So remember, if we want to have good cognitive performance, which includes working memory, we have to really practice good mental hygiene. because working memory powers our executive function. Working memory affects how we can perform our tasks on a day-to-day basis. So there are a lot of strategies you can start, and I challenge all of you to at least stop multitasking so much and incorporate some of that downtime or mindfulness during your day. But at some point, we can do all of these strategies, but at some point, we have to get to the root cause and improve cognitive skills. Because remember when we were talking earlier that we can use memory apps to help us remember. You might give yourself an app with your to-do list that's to help you remember the to-do list. But at the end of the day, we have to improve your cognitive skills to make that app on, let's say you have an app on your phone with your to-do list, but we have to really get to the root cause. And that's that we have to improve certain cognitive skills so that that to-do list that's helping us remember things is effective. That means in order for that to-do list to be effective, I have to improve your memory. If I can help you improve your memory, then you'll remember you have a to-do list. I have to also help you improve your ability to control your impulsivity so that you're not just starting number 1 on the to-do list and impulsively jumping down to number 3. I also have to help you learn how to filter distractions so that you're not starting number 1 and then getting distracted by everything in your environment and then losing your place and going down to number 2. There are a lot of cognitive skills that we need to improve in order for these strategies to really make sense and be beneficial. So at some point, we have to get to the root cause and develop these skills so that we can be successful, that we can improve our working memory, we can improve our ability to direct and sustain attention. And that's what we do within Play Attention. Some of you may be very familiar with Play Attention, some of you may not, but you see that this individual is wearing our body wave technology. This is that specially designed armband. On the back, there are 3 sensors. So it simply rests on your arm. Those sensors are monitoring your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer where you're allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attention alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. And that is critical to the learning process. And being able to direct and sustain your attention is critical to working memory. So we can incorporate a program. We can incorporate all of these cognitive skills into your customized plan and help you, help your child actually develop those foundational skills that are required for strong working memory. We can teach you how to direct and sustain your attention at will. We can improve processing speed. Remember, that's one of those skills that we lose as we age, but also many people with ADHD, both children and adults, are slow processors. So you may notice that your student understands the information, but it just takes them a little bit longer to process the information and give a response. So we have to improve processing speed. We can incorporate that. In fact, we incorporate processing speed in every single cognitive exercise within Play Attention. We help you improve your ability to filter distractions. You can actually see how distractions affect you. We have one exercise called attention stamina, and you can choose from different characters. One is a whale, and if you are paying attention, once you're focused and paying attention, you can push that whale down to the bottom of the ocean just with your attentive state alone, just your mind alone, and you try to keep it there as long as possible. If your child is doing this activity and he has that character at the bottom of the ocean, and suddenly his sister walks into the room and he can't filter that distraction, immediately that character starts to float up, and he has to control that, filter that distraction in order to push it back down to the bottom of the ocean. So we can actually teach you how to recognize and filter distractions. There are a variety of cognitive skills we address within play attention. And all of these cognitive skills address the root cause of weak working memory. We can address attention stamina, visual tracking, task completion, short-term memory, filtering distractions. We do have a specific exercise called working memory. We address auditory processing. All of these cognitive skills we need to strengthen in order to improve executive function and working memory. We can address in a customized program through play attention. And if you want more information on play attention and how you can learn more about play attention or enroll your students or your children into a play attention program, just type your questions in the chat box or type your interest in the chat box, and Karin will reach out to you. Karin and Marlise will reach out to you and provide you with more information on how you can access play attention in your area or start a play attention program for your students. So do please type in the chat box if you would like to request more information, and they will follow up with you in order to provide that information. So just to summarize, I'm going to summarize, and I've been talking a lot, and I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit over your time. And so I'm just going to summarize everything that we talked about, and so that you can move all of this information you have on your mental sticky note. You can now move it from your working memory into long-term memory. Remember, working memory is a cognitive skill that allows you to manipulate data throughout your day. Many factors directly affect working memory. Mental hygiene, good mental hygiene can improve your working memory. Working memory deficits are a major cause of lack of success at school and at work. In order to improve working memory, we must stop multitasking. And finally, we need to improve cognitive skills such as attention, processing speed, and filtering distractions. We need to get to the root cause and develop cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong working memory and strong executive function. I hope you found this information very helpful. If you do have additional questions for myself or for Karin or Marlise, please do type your questions in or reach out to Karin and Marlise, and I am certain they will follow up with you in a timely manner and provide you with additional information. I really do appreciate your time. I know it's late there and I took you away from your dinner time, but I really appreciated your time and your attention, and hopefully we can do this again in the near future. Take care, everyone, and you have a wonderful evening.